Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Keepers of Quescaton. This is my live recap of our AD&D First Edition Greyhawk campaign. Last Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday, I'm kind of forgetting now, because we are going to make a switch to Tuesdays. So last Monday, I believe it was, we did our session 28. And I'll see if any of the players can come on tonight. But if not, then we will just go through and I will interact with the people in chat and talk a little bit about this campaign. Talk in general about AD&D First Edition and just how much fun we're having with this with this game system and using the traditional modules, but obviously updating them and making them fit within the campaign that we've been running now for 28 weeks. And without further ado, let me check the comments. Now, I did have a misfire, so I apologize for that. I unfortunately ran this. I thought I had scheduled it for tonight at 8 o'clock, right on the head. And apparently it showed last night at that time. And I know at least one person, was in, or two people were in last night. So hopefully, they understand and they'll come back in tonight. So let's see if we have anyone in comments. Nope, the comments are still from the other day, so we will continue and talk about the Keepers of Quescaton. So the Keepers of Quescaton, if you haven't been following along, and this is your first time seeing this, it is a title that my player party group had gained after completing B1, which was in the Search of the Unknown. And once they had completed that, they started to become more and more embroiled in the overall campaign concept that I have that they're going to be running. And it's a campaign concept that is going to take them from level 1 through to at least level 14. That's kind of how I've projected it out. And hopefully the group that we have right now, we're at 8 players now. We were at 9, and we lost a player. We were hoping to get a new player to join us, but her college schedule just wasn't able to do on Monday nights. Maybe Tuesdays will be better, but we'll see. It's kind of difficult to balance all those things. I'm certainly aware of that, and to be a college student and to do a very frequent and devoted game time is kind of hard. So I completely understand that. I'm having actually a hard time just getting another play session in based on my schedule, plus running a campaign and then trying to find time over the weekend to actually play as a player. And in my our magic users campaign that he's running, and so it's just tough. I understand. So let's talk about the recap. So here was some of the questions I was going to discuss, and these are open to to anyone out there who also wants to chime in. And the first question I was going to do is, what are not so obvious benefits of running or playing a long campaign? So this is something that I've seen, coming up in discussions on various channels on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Several different commentators that I do follow, and there's been some talk about very short campaigns, and what I consider very short campaigns is like 3 sessions, 6 sessions. When Wizards of the Coast came out sometime last year in an article and stated that according to some metric, maybe it was according to Roll20 or some other internal metric that they had, they came up with with the realization that the average 5e campaign only lasts 6 sessions. And when I took a look at the Essentials box set, and I saw that, well, yeah, that's kind of plotted out to last about 6 sessions, and that would take characters from levels 1 to 6. By running through that mini campaign, I could definitely see how they come up with that number. Like, is 6 sessions is enough to get you through to enough to get you through to 6th level, which is obviously using milestone leveling, which I don't do. And so I was like, all right, I can at least see where they're coming up with that number and how they're getting to that point. But there's got to be benefits that we really don't talk about, about long-term campaigns. And what I consider to be long-term campaigns is, anything a year or more. Now, I recently saw another commentator that came out and said, that a DM, there should be term limits on dungeon masters, and a dungeon master should only play for run the game for about a year. Oh, here's one of my players, so I will bring him in.
Sorry, I'm late.
Or how's it going?
Hello, am I late?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you fine too. Although you might be a little bit low. But how's it going?
Good.
Yeah, so I was just actually bouncing on this one question here of what are some of the not so obvious benefits of running or playing in a long campaign? So so from your perspective, what would be something that you would say about being in a long-term campaign, from both either a player's perspective or a DM's perspective, if you've ever run a very long campaign before?
So you're saying what is not an obvious benefit?
Yeah, well, yeah, like
benefit.
Obvious benefits would be something like, well, when you run a long campaign, you really get to know the players and the player characters, and it's a long sustained story and everything. We've probably all heard that benefit of a long-term campaign. What would be one that you don't hear very often?
Well, you get to actually get to develop your character, I guess. Whereas it seems like a lot of, I guess, the newer editions, that with the milestones, it's like, well, here's where you're going to develop your character. Here's where you get to add everything, so it's very predictable. Whereas in a long-term campaign in an older edition, you don't know how many sessions it's going to take you to get to where you're going next. So there's some anticipation there. It's not like, well, yeah, this is going to last 6 weeks, and because the DM said it was going to last 6 weeks, and you just don't know. There's some unpredictability to it.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking of was that when you are running a long campaign, you have more opportunities for there to be like little side treks, and you don't have to worry so much about, well, when are they going to get back on
track,
back online again, when you do know, hey, we have weeks or months, or even years to get really much deeper into the main campaign. So these little side quests aren't as much of a distraction, as they might be if we knew we only had, we have 6 sessions to finish this campaign up, before we look to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, so I mean, there's probably like you said, it does allow you to, really become invested in your character, and you start to develop your character. And again, you might actually see, hey, you know what? I want to take my character in a new direction, and there's mechanics in first edition that allow for that to happen. It's not like you have to restart a whole new character. You can do like what Angus did, right? Angus just decided, I want to be a bard. I really don't want to be a ranger anymore. Do I have to re-roll my character? And I says, no. What
Mm-hmm.
you had to do was you just have to lose your ranger status or ability or profession, um, and then you become a fighter when you do that. And the fighter is, one of the base you know um, professions or classes that you have to be before you could become a bard. So it kind of worked that way without having to re-roll the character. And I mean, there's other ways. If you get tired of being a paladin, there's certainly ways that you can do that as well. Or um, a druid or a barbarian, any of them that have like an alignment requirement. But if you were a cleric and you no longer wanted to serve a particular deity, although I'm sure it would be kind of dangerous, you could switch alignments and start following a new deity, and
Mm-hmm.
and that might actually be um, a really interesting campaign to do if you had, a few players, and you could really focus on maybe a couple of them are all worshippers of the same deity, and go through that kind of a process. That would actually make a very interesting campaign to do. So
And
let's
also, you have the option in first edition with humans to do dual classing, where you can say, okay, I've got to a certain point, I've got a
Yep.
secondary stat that's high enough, I'm going to switch to something else now.
Yeah. I mean, there's always that, that opportunity as well, built right into the game system. So the game system does kind of give that not so obvious,
But it,
like this question, not so obvious benefit,
but
of running a lone
it's not like,
campaign, is that the system allows for that kind of a change.
but it's not like fifth edition or the later editions where you're like, oh, I'm going to do this level and then I'm going to switch to this level and then switch. There's certain, like, you have to start at a certain one and you level to a certain level. Then you can't use your old abilities until you pass it. So,
Right.
it makes it a serious decision. Are you going to do this? This is a serious,
Right.
life changing event. This is not just like, I'm going to put on a different pair of clothes today and do something different. Where it feels like in the later editions, they kind of made it like that. Oh, well, I'm gonna be a cleric today, or I'm gonna be a fighter tomorrow. But there's it's more significant and more difficult to do that, but you can do it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I mean, there's other game systems where you have a straight skill system, where you just pick up different skills and you become, kind of a hodgepodge of different abilities and everything. And that's fine for those particular systems, but Dungeons and Dragons has never been, that foundation. Certainly not the OSR, the older editions of Dungeons and Dragons, and even the retro clones of today don't allow for that either. So there's very few uh, Dungeons and Dragons derivative games that allow for just like a skill based system. They all seem to be class based. Okay, we're going to move on then. Let's see if we have any comments in the comments section here. And we don't. So I know we had some viewers. So if you have any comments that you want to bring up, and we will go to Well, let's talk a little bit about, since I have you here, we'll talk a little bit about the last adventure, so the last session that we had. And for those of you that are watching or will be seeing this later on, we are actually running through B2, which is the Keep on the Borderlands. I'm using the original. I'm not using the reboot of it, even though I have that. That was done for second edition. I'm using the original because, again, I am strongly modifying these. So there's so much changes that are going on here that it's not a direct duplicate of just running through this, but it still has that same feel to it by using this particular one. So even the maps are slightly altered. Like I will not include certain parts of the maps because I do have experienced players, and I'm sure that they probably played this, although it might have been a long time since they've done it. But there will be changes done. So as they're going through this, they had left the Kobold lair in episode 27, and now they've worked their way up the inclination, and they've gotten up into the bugbear, or at least that's what they're assuming was the bugbear lair, and this particular session was a much more traditional dungeon crawl, room to room, just very combat heavy. However, the players, I found the players were still getting back to their tactics and doing some of the things that they have been doing so well. So I'll give Mirador a chance to talk a little bit about that. So, what's something that stood out for you as far as how your group approached this particular leg of the adventure?
Well, since in the previous session we fell prey to a trap, we were more cautious this time. We made sure that we declared we were checking for things, taking it, room by room, hall by hall, carefully following our normal protocols and having our marching order, and so that uh, we would be better prepared for things, because we did have a little bit of a surprise in the previous session, that could have. But then what's funny is one of the encounters we had. We thought, oh well, last time we threw 2 sleep spells out. Maybe we don't need to do that this time, but we can handle this. And we probably should have thrown at least one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You. So what the group was looking to do was they have these marbles. I guess they have two sets of marbles. They have marbles with continual light spells cast on them, which they keep in a pouch. And then they have these marbles with a continual darkness spell cast on them,
Yeah,
and then you encase them in mud.
yeah.
That way, when they're thrown, they'll break open, and at least in theory, because you haven't done this yet.
No.
And the group was looking like, well, we're going to roll these things inside the room because you suspected that there was, quite a number of creatures, because you weren't sure, what they were, but you assumed bugbears, and you were going to cast a silence spell. I believe you were right. Going to cast
Yeah, that was we were trying to. We had 2 different options in mind to either. What I was thinking is if there was enough room under the door, we would roll a darkness marble under the door to disorient them, and then when they open the door, we'd be ready to attack. And then I would cast a silence so that if they did try to scream, nobody would hear them. But we decided to do the Weekend at Bernie's idea instead, where we had killed a couple of the guards at the beginning, and they thought, well, we'll just have the 2 strong characters bring the guards to the front of the door and then fake knock the door, And when they open, they'll see their friends, and then we drop their friends and shoot arrows into them, and that's what we decided to do instead.
Right.
In hindsight, I'm not sure that was the right option because the combat was a little more a little bit more difficult than the previous cave, and I mean we got through it, but we did take a little more damage than we did before.
Yeah, well, first of all, these are bugbears, so they are, a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
Although they weren't as savvy, let's say, or as as organized as the kobolds were when you fought the kobolds. The kobolds were a little bit more crafty about how they were handling these things. These guys were a little bit more on the oafish side. But yeah, that plan, I will certainly say this, that it was not clear to me like how that plan was going to work out, because I mean, if you cast a continual dark spell into that space, and it wasn't something that was directly casted at that time, it was cast previously.
Mm-hmm.
So by rolling that marble in there, you know, um, I'm not quite sure that anyone would be able to see under those
No,
circumstances.
no, they wouldn't. But the point was, is as soon as they run out the door, you plug them, and then you've got two warriors on each side of the door ready to cut them up, and they don't know what to expect. But that was the idea. That was my idea, and I
Yeah.
guess they decided I got overruled this
Yeah.
time, so we
Well,
didn't do it that way.
yeah, and then you know, if you cast the silence 15-foot radius, which would have taken up most of the room,
Yeah,
it basically takes, most of your spell casting out of the picture then, because, if you had any kind of verbal component,
yeah,
or the magic
and
users,
I think
had
that's
any kind
where
of
we
verbal
we
component,
decided not to do
they
that.
wouldn't
We
have been
just
able to do anything either.
right.
So I'm sitting there, I was like, but how's this mud thing work too? Because I mean, does it always break off completely? Does it, will it like direct the continual darkness in different like cones almost, if only a portion of the mud broke off?
Yeah,
So
I was
yeah,
wondering about that. It's funny that you mentioned that. I actually bought a book on eBay, and it's a Encyclopedia Magica that has like all these different magic items, and one of the items that's inside it is actually like a tube that has a place where you could cast a continual light inside of it, and basically turns it into
a
a
flashlight.
flashlight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
and
actually
it
done
has
that
like a
before,
cap that you
actually.
screw on
So
the end,
yes,
and you just leave it
actually,
permanently
your
enchanted.
group did that. Your
Yeah,
group had a you put a continual light, one of the
or
coins, I think,
yeah,
into a scroll tube,
yeah, yeah.
and
You
you
basically have a
had that where you
flashlight.
were using it like a flashlight.
Yeah.
Yes, and recently that was something. Someone else had done a video, and I didn't get around to actually watching it, but some other YouTuber came out with a video of these, mundane magic. Um, video where I'm assuming they were like 10 mundane magic items, and I was thinking, well, geez, my guys use that all the time, you know. So I fully expected it, but I didn't watch the video, so I don't know exactly. But I kind of think that that's where he was leaning towards. Um, I've been doing the the leather pouch, and then inside the leather pouch is holding the bead or whatever that has continual light spells, so that everybody's walking around with basically a lantern on their chest, so they
Hmm.
can see, as they're going on. You don't have to mess around with torches or anything like that.
Yeah.
um but anyway, so yeah, so you guys go into that room, and you're facing seven bugbear males. If I get the numbers slightly off, I think it was seven males. Maybe it was
It was either
no, I'm sorry,
seven
it was
males or
three
five
males,
females,
seven
or the other way around,
females,
something like that.
and three children or cubs, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever they're called. Yeah, three cubs. So the males got taken down very quickly. Angus, as usual, took out two of the males very first round. Malric, Breeze killed. No,
One
Breeze
or
took
two,
one of them
yeah,
down,
yeah.
and then Malric killed
I think
that
I
one.
actually managed to even finish one off in one of the fights. I think I finished one off with a slingshot, which is kind of unusual for me. But
Yes, you did. Yes, yeah, and I marked it down. So yes, individuals that you killed one of the sentries.
oh, okay.
Yes, you killed the sentry, which again is that was the very first part. Actually, as you're walking right, you're approaching that tunnel.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that
yeah,
that
Angus
we
killed
missed
the
that
first
part
one. You
where
killed the second.
the motivation to actually go into this cave was the fact that Leah's pet giant rat from the previous session told us that's where I saw the were rat. So that's why we decided to go to this cave over
Right.
the other cave. So
Oh, I got the garage. So
so yeah, that was the motivation to go in there. As the rat told us where it had seen the were rat, and so that's why we picked that cave over the other ones in this
right.
session.
Yeah, and like so far, you covered all of the area that you could tell, and so far, like the main areas. Plus, you encountered the what you believe to be the leader of this, little bugbear group, and that was one of the first times that Breeze actually killed. We was the only one to attack and kill one of the main, monsters that you were going to face. So yeah, he put two arrows into it, 9 points and 9 points, and took it out. So that was, one of the few times that Breeze had that opportunity to be the only one shooting at the moment and taking out a bugbear. This is the first time that you guys encountered bugbears, actually,
Mm-hmm.
and so bugbears will now be added onto your growing list of creatures that you've encountered. So and you'll learn little bits here and there as you're going through, and I keep a running list of everything that you've encountered. That way, when you come across it again later on,
We'll know whether we
um,
recognize it or not.
I'll remind you of certain things, or give you a chance to remember certain things about them, and that way you're kind of learning a little bit more of the world lore and such, and that's where we cross over between player knowledge and character knowledge, is that you might be aware of something but your character hasn't encountered it yet, and so I will put like a stop block on that, like, no, you don't, your character won't know that. So just try to play through that. But
Mm-hmm.
as your characters actually encounter more things, then it'll become much more of a combined, be able to combine those two things up. So the other thing that really stood out to me here was, even though it was just a very traditional dungeon crawl hack and slash, because that's really what it amounted to. um, you know, it still brings up that very common discussion that takes place of, what do you do when you're dealing with humanoids, which are typically, I mean, they're almost always evil, and what do you do with that when you have captives? Hey, Leah,
Hello.
how are you?
It's been a hell
So
of a day.
yeah, so we were just talking about the various encounters that you had with the bugbears, and we're talking about the main encounter that you had, where you had some captives left over, or just the females and the young left over, and um the party is starting to, I guess, deal with very common question. What do you do when you have these inherently evil creatures, um, and even when they're supposedly um, neutralized, let's say, you still don't want them to, just be released back into the wild where they could cause all kinds of trouble. So
My character is sort of, if we had a way to take captives and deal with the captives, it would be one thing. But since we don't, the most polite thing is to kill them so that they don't suffer.
yeah. So they don't suffer the moral conundrum that they that they will continue to be an evil life. Yeah. um yeah, I mean, it does make sense when you start thinking, like, if player characters and their players controlling them start thinking about this in a much more global way. And what I mean by that is that yeah, if you defeat and capture and then release, a whole bunch of, hobgoblins, or, orcs, or any of these things, um, what are they going to do to the countryside? They might be less of a challenge for you, a party of fourth level adventurers, but a bugbear against a common, human NPC is much more of a match, for probably three of them, where you can probably take on three bugbears by yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's like the catch and release doesn't
And
work.
if you push them out of their home, they're more likely to attack a village. To, hey, well, there's someplace else to be. So
Yeah.
you may be making things worse, where they may have been content to stay there for the moment, but now you've pushed them out of their home, and so.
Yeah. So let's go on to. So I was also like throwing some questions in here, or just like, just thoughts that I had when preparing for this. So, all right, let me ask you both this here. So, how long do you feel it takes to really understand your character?
A couple of levels.
Oh, so you put it in a framework of, number of levels in order to, and is that like a class function or just like your character personality? Like, does that take you a few levels to
My
figure out?
my character, because of the that evil druid group,
Mhm.
um, my character is not questioning what we're doing right now, as long as we're going to eventually deal with the evil druids.
Mhm.
I'm 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 dealing with the fact that the party is my party,
Mm.
and I'm not dealing with whether it is evil or good or adjusting the balance, because in my mind, until we get to the evil druids, I'm not going to be worried about whether or not we're too good or too evil or whatever. I'm still neutral.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and it actually, it shows to me as somebody who, I mean, I thought about these druids, and I wanted to see, like, how could I make them, more interesting, and still be like the antagonist here. And I did not anticipate the reaction that the party in general would have, to them, because really it's been, I couldn't have planned it that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't have planned, the various things that occurred and the consequences of them. I mean, the consequences came after the fact, but I couldn't have planned the way that you would react to certain things. And so the way the party has been responding to some of these things, it really did, like, your actions brought life into, the things that I hadn't, necessarily planned on, but it just took a life on its own, so, that's how this really is playing like a true sandbox, in the sense that, you are generating the content just by the way you're reacting to things, and then that's prompting me to, all right, let me take this into a new direction now, because that's, just a much more interesting direction than I thought. Let's see, we do, okay, that's not a comment. That's, I don't even know what that means. So anyway, so let's go to Mirador. So how long does it take you to usually understand, like, your character, whether it's the mechanics of a character or just where you're going to go personality wise or goals wise with your character?
Well, actually, I think my character is actually gonna start seeing some changes here. Like when he started out, he was this a kind of ugly, unloved child that struck out on his own, left his father, and joined the clergy, and now he's received an item that is changing his appearance and his demeanor, and so he's gonna have to learn how to live this new, more charismatic existence. So he is going to be changing, but I haven't really had an opportunity to use that new new aspect of his character yet. So he is gonna. I look forward to getting some role playing situations coming up after we finish all the combat situations that we're going to have, to try to let him stretch his new abilities.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the one thing, like I've been watching how your character, because there are two clerics in the group, and you're both very different. So Breeze is much more lighthearted and kind of just going with the flow kind of thing. And your character has been so far much more like self-sacrificing in some ways, and more calculating, like what you're looking to do. You're actually participating in some of the the planning of, well, this is what we should try to do or whatever, even though you did get overridden. But so that it's been working out, really interesting to watch as each character kind of starts to shine, or at least make their presence felt.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I guess it's laid out 77. Hello. Welcome. And yeah, we're talking here about our AD&D first edition campaign. We just completed session 28, and we're running Keep on the Borderlands, the original, so not the remake, not the second edition remake. We're using this, although I highly alter it so that it matches, the campaign fits within the campaign. The party are 8, level 4, couple level 5. I think, anybody level 5 yet, or we're getting ready?
Yeah, the 2 clerics are level 5.
The two clerics are level 5.
Level 5 too, Leah, right?
And
I'm level 5. I've already got level 6 ready, but I have to train it.
Yeah. So the party is, under the normal circumstances of Keep on the Borderlands, The party is much larger than usual, and it's a little bit more powerful than what the module originally intended. And that's because they had done some, a few side quests here and there, and ending up being a little bit more powerful for this. But this is going to, of course, match the campaign, and so it's going to have its moments when it should be easier for them. Although so far your two encounters with the kobolds and the bugbears were much more challenging than what the hobgoblins earlier on were meant to be.
It makes you realize how challenging a first edition in its day would have been. I mean, if you actually had a appropriate sized party for the module, you would have to be even more careful than we were, because the enemies outnumber you, and they're not any weaker than it's supposed to be like a 1 to 3 module, and you've got like 40 in a room. How are you going to deal with that? We're able to handle it more powerful, but I can't imagine a group of 5 level 2s handling the kind of encounters that we've been having.
Right. Yeah. You've had much larger encounters. So they wouldn't have, and there's no way, if you were a group of 5 level 2s, you would have encountered Umber Hulks and Dracolisks either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
there's certain things. Yeah, Cal, it is a large group, and they've been going up levels, but they've been going up levels at a pace that really does match the type of creatures that they're facing and defeating. Some of the treasure, which they really, until they hit that mini dragon's lair, basically they that was the biggest cash hoard that they hit at the moment. And that's I still don't think that was their highest. I'd have to look at the chart. I still don't think that was your highest experience point gain.
No, I think probably the biggest one was when we were in B1, and we did that one room with all the priests, where we fought, two priests and like
the druid
5 warriors, and and then we slept a bunch.
Yeah, it was either that or I'd have to look. It might have been the bandits too. Gave you a lot of experience points.
Yeah, and then of course there was the golem-esque thing that you had. That was a big anticipated fight that we had to deal with.
Yeah, so the Keep is a classic. The Keep on the Borderlands is a classic. You run the Labyrinth Lord BX clone. So cool to see people playing OSR, playing some OSR guy. Yes, I am strictly an OSR person, and been running OSR games now for almost exclusively for the last 2 years, and it's something that I really do encourage other people out there to do, and that is to to run these older editions and run these classic modules, and get out there on YouTube or any other of the services you might do, and just talk up what you're doing. Have your players come on and chat about just the experience that we're having together, and that will actually show that there's still a lot of appeal for these older editions. And I've never had trouble filling up a table, just announcing on Roll20 I'm going to run an AD&D campaign or a D&D Beck Me campaign. I've always had large groups of people turn out, sometimes way too many. I mean, this is the largest group that I allowed to play, but I've had as many as 12 or 16 people looking to come on, and this was the first time that I was actually prepared to run with 10, even though we never actually ended up with 10. We had 9 for quite a long time, and now we're down to 8. So I will let a natural attrition take place, to a certain extent, but but it's been a really great experience playing these traditional modules, obviously modifying them so that there's still some surprises to them, and just capturing that real, old school feel. So let's see, what else do we got here? So taught my players to pick their battles smarter. Yeah, I mean, and this group is very smart when they're doing things, and when they've made those small blunders, and they acknowledge it, like, oh well, that was a mistake, we could have done this better, like Mirador had mentioned earlier. Maybe we should have casted those sleep spells, to take care of some of that. It would have made it a lot easier, especially when the paladin, Candrius got attacked by by 3 or 4 bugbears, and all of a sudden he's taken, I think, 16 hit points of damage in that one round. It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was a.
And if we hadn't gotten a
I'll be
heal
back in a few
at him, if we didn't have that heal, he'd have been down.
Yeah.
He'd have been all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah, because he took another hit thereafter that would have put him down. Because he took another, I think, 8 or 9 hit points after being down, after getting healed. He got healed by Mirador. Mirador healed him up by 7, and then he took another 9 thereafter. Yeah. So yeah, it would have been bad. So let's see. Let's get, how long do you really understand the character? Let's see some more comments here. So now they're level 6, and that's about as far as I take my group. Well, I wonder why. Why would you only take your group up to level 6? So yeah, if you don't mind answering, getting to that, I think like the older edition, I mean, it's not like it's 5e. 5e, I could see level 6, they start to become so powerful that I'm sure that it becomes harder to find challenges for them, unless you're running those pre-made adventures that come in the books, and then they run from like level 1 to 15 or something crazy like that, that you do in 6 months. It's like just bizarre to me how fast you go up those levels. But if I can get to your comment where you explain that. So hello, Alina 03. Let's see. I am Gen Z. I just really like old D&D. Yeah. There's just something about it that I keep. It's not just a nostalgia thing. I think it's the best. It's really the best edition of it. I don't think that. I know some people argue, oh, AD&D 2nd edition or D&D 3rd or 3.5. No one says 4, obviously, but I still go back to 1st edition AD&D. I think is still the best, and not just for nostalgia purposes. It's I just like the system better. That's both great, but stretching it. Okay. Cool. All right, let's see. I want to get into his 1974 chainmail D&D. I don't actually have chainmail, but I do have the white box, and I do have that version of it. And I'll tell you one thing: assassins are like crazy in OD&D. I mean, it's like they have like a 50% chance of killing you every time they touch you. I mean, every time they attack you. It's crazy how powerful assassins are in that. And then the other classes, like the thief is introduced there. And the thief is kind of like what it is. Thief happens to be my favorite character class to play, but they're not very powerful. they're kind of underpowered for what they're able to do, and their skills are really pretty difficult to deal with. As far as they don't have very much chance of like pickpocketing or doing any of those things that they do at first level. Let's see. It's been impossible so far for me to get any more players. Unfortunately, my others had bad health issues, so not to start even. Yeah, I really don't. If you're using if you're using Roll20, and then you use some of the websites to, you use some of the Facebook communities to just drum up some interest into it. I don't think it's that hard to, I haven't found it hard to find AD&D First Edition. So uh, if you want, I can look around and see if anyone's looking to join. A lot of times I get people will say, I wish I could join your game, and I'll send them your way. I just did that with Ivan because Ivan's running his Homes Edition campaign on either Saturdays or Sundays now because I really can't do the weekends. And I did have one player that tried to get into my old campaign, which it wasn't even active anymore. So I will send I'll send people your way, Cal, if you're looking for anyone more people to join up if you're going to look to run an AD&D campaign. So let's see. Well, between 1 and 6, the danger stays high and threatening. I just scale monsters to their level. Also, keeping a group longer becomes hard. Yeah, again, maybe I'll do a video and just talk about, what has worked for me. I never tell people how they should do things or, my way is the best. I just, talk from the perspective of, this is what's worked for me. It may work for you, may not work for you, but, just how to kind of keep players engaged and, and I'll let Mirador and Sparrow here, talk to that. Yeah, what's keeping we're into session 28 now. So what's keeping you going?
I still want to get my druid up so I can get wild shape.
Yeah. So you want to get to your polymorph self spell, so
Yeah.
and be able to do that. How about you, Mirador? I mean, what's keeping you going, as a player in this campaign? Because this campaign is just about to the point that it's going to be a long campaign. So I guess 28 weeks is still fairly short. But what's keeping you going? I don't know if Mirador is still there. Oh, he might not be there. All right, we'll move on. Let's see. Cal, nice to hear that. Alina, I quite enjoyed old school wizardry and Ultima for one, as well as MUDs. Yeah, MUDs are an interesting thing because it's been a long time since I was playing, those video games where it was all obviously all script, all text based games back then, and yeah, that's what MUDs are. MUDs are text based video games. Oh, my dog is going crazy. Let me mute for a second.
I played in a mush, which is a shared hallucination.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so what I'm trying to remember what games are classified as MUDs. wasn't the original it wasn't called what was the original one? Something Quest. What was the original Quest game? Video game, computer game. The first MMO. Well, the first MMO was like Meridian something. But the EverQuest, wasn't the first EverQuest a MUD or classified as MUD?
I'm not sure. I never
Yeah.
played it.
Yeah, I think it might have been classified as a MUD. And then the one that Lord British created was definitely a MUD. Whatever that was. I'm kind of forgetting because I didn't play them back then. That was like late 90s. And I'm probably playing Elder Scrolls by then, but I wasn't doing those. I wasn't into MMOs or those very early MMOs yet.
I played in the Champions Mush, which is a multiple user shared hallucination.
So I also benchmark level instead of wrestling with XP to GP math. We still have months of play. Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind so much doing plus Amalric really helps out with with doing all those calculations and those things. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be able to do it as much anyway. So let's see. Let's see. Rage Quit. Wiz 1. Is that Wizardry 1? Or Wizardry 101? I think there's a game called Wizardry 101 that Alina might be talking about. So Theater of the Mind and minis. Yeah, we don't use minis. We do mostly in our group here. We're doing mostly Theater of the Mind. Although I do have the map there, and we kind of put a little dots here and there where everyone is at. But I basically do little sketch marks and just plot it out here, and then we have our marching order that we do, and we have a couple of visual cues, but I don't use Roll20 to its fullest extent because I hate the lighting issues that there is always with the dynamic lighting and moving the tokens around and doing all of that. When it works well, it's great, but usually it doesn't work well. It usually is a mess. So let's see. One of the most popular ones ever is Genesis LP MUD. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at one of them just to refresh my memory. The first was actually Habitat, the first MMO. I always thought it was Meridian. It was something like Meridian 66 or something like that. Yes, I was talking about EverQuest. I couldn't just remember it for some reason. Let's see.
12-minute timer on Eric's Echo is ringing.
You'll never hook me with your Skyrims, Morrowind, or Daggerfall forever. Daggerfall had by far the most incredible sound. So when that lightning struck and you had that thunder and everything like that, it was unbelievable. All right, so Meridian was the first one with 3D graphics. Okay. And then we played like Might and Magic as well. That came certainly after Meridian, but not much after Meridian. But yeah, I knew that was one of them that was reminding me. All right, let's get back to our questions and our talk about our session. So let's see. Oh, here were some questions I wanted to ask the group. Let's go with this one here. So what is a place or character would like to travel to? So in the world of Greyhawk, what's one place? And let's not do the city of Greyhawk. Let's do someplace else if you're familiar at all with the world, or just one place that you really want to go to for your character.
I wasn't a Greyhawk player. I was Forgotten Realms when I dealt with it. But
Okay, so
Carp's the one who's the Greyhawk player.
well, yeah, Kurt and well, certainly Angus would be two. Kelly would definitely be the one to go with that as well. So I guess we lost Mirador. All right, we'll move on. If I were playing in the world of Greyhawk, I would probably say that I'd like to go to some of those. I've never actually played in any of those like northern barbaric areas. With any of my characters. So anything like north of the Shield Lands, let's say, or just going up into those various barbarian, northern cold barbarian areas. So where I believe Blackmoor is actually supposed to be up there. So that's where I would want to go. I would want to go to Blackmoor, where the Blackmoor campaign took place. So a new thing, skill, language, or spell that you would like for your character to learn or discover. I already know your answer there. So that's certainly something that will eventually happen. Your character will eventually hit the level where you'll pick up that ability to that kicks in at what, 6 or 7?
7, I believe.
7, yeah. So
I actually have something that I want to talk to you about. I want to take some vines, take one of my continual light bullets, which has already got earth around it to keep it from shining out, and I want to add the vines to it so I can toss that and then use it for an entangle. Because I'm so tired of not being able to entangle inside a dungeon.
Well, yeah, you'd certainly be able to entangle inside a dungeon with just the vines, but yeah.
Well, I figure if I group it with the continual light stone, that gives it the energy to grow.
Okay. All right. Sure. I mean, we'll certainly test the theory out and see how it works. And see what circumstances or situation you'll come into. So it's definitely something that I've been thinking about since you are hopefully working towards confronting this evil druid sect, that you'll actually get caught up and you'll have some
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to find them in the Caves of Chaos or in that halfling village.
Yeah. That eventually will come up. Axewood. So we have some people. Axewood or Menwood. These places fit in my homebrew for sure. Yes. I've been in Menwood before as a player. So Axewood is. I think Axewood is north of, like, that's near Keeland, I believe. Menwood has been a long time. I'm not sure. The Hobbit is my favorite novel, so I love Greyhawk in concept. I just don't know anything about the places and the characters. Yeah, I think most people, when they run the world of Greyhawk, they tend to stick to those main countries like Keeland, where there's a lot of adventures set in Keeland. And then they also do them around the city of Greyhawk and in Furiandi and Valuna, and there's certain areas where a lot of the official adventures took place. Tomb of Horrors has been moved around from one place to another. Sometimes it's in the vast swamp, and other times it's in other places. But for the most part, I think that there's just a lot of places in the world of Greyhawk that most people don't play, and at least not in my experience. I've seen very few people talking about running whole campaigns in various parts of the world of Greyhawk. So there's a lot of it that's still very much unexplored.
I'm back.
Hey, no problem. All right, so Japanese console style RPGs, definitely Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior. I love Dragon Warrior. Final Fantasy I wasn't a huge fan of, but I love Dragon Warrior. That was one of my favorite console games. Yeah. So yeah, you were annoying the DM, and so the DM most likely, although wizards at a certain level, they're kind of squishy still. So it might not have been totally intentional, but yeah, wizards sometimes can, especially when they start becoming powerful, they can be annoying, and there's they tend to have just various ways of getting around what you've planned, and it's like, oh, all right, another, and in this group here, even though your wizards are starting to become a little bit more powerful, it's like you guys are very creative with what you're trying to do, um, with various types of magic, and as Mirador and I were talking, earlier on, about mundane magic and some of the things like you're doing with the continual lights or bringing vines and combining them up, just thinking outside the box in some cases and doing those things. So
Like Leah combining her speak with animal with charm mammal. So
yes,
you got to talk to him then, so you can cast the charm, and then
yeah, it's a just thinking about the combinations of spells, to and between different party members as well, or different character classes, and developing those kind of synergies, of, well, if I do this, then you do that, then this is what the result could be. um Wizards, they are broken, at least at later levels. I don't know if they're broken, it's just that you have to make sure that the adventure that you're sending them on is built for that. I mean, I've found that with a large group, and they're starting to get to that mid-level range, that it helps that some of the official AD&D first edition modules are pretty freaking tough. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not like I really have to elevate the difficulty of them. I have to increase um, the uniqueness or the interest of them, make them a little bit more interesting, um, a little bit more challenging. Not difficulty challenging, but challenging, like, you'll have to think your way through it a little differently, or just make it.
the quantity of monsters are sufficient. You just have to upgrade the tactics to make it more challenging.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's or even like the type of monsters. Um, they just have to be played more intelligently. Like you said, they just have to be, so if you are a large party and a mid-level party, you could still face orcs or hobgoblins or those kinds of things. It's just that they're going to, be much smarter than, I mean, not outside of their normal range. You're not going to come across super genius, kobolds, but you will encounter, them where they're, they have a plan. They have, they know how to defend their lair, that kind of thing. That's where you're going to run encounter. Like when you guys were doing the various things in your, your dungeon crawl there, I mean, there was random encounter rolls being done, while you were debating, do we roll the marbles? Do we do this? Do we do that? I mean, the the dungeon is still moving. It's still running its course like it normally would. And if a random encounter happens, it's going to happen. If it doesn't, you guys can sit there and basically debate how are we going to enter this room, kind of thing. But it's a constantly moving parts of an adventure when you're running it, and you're trying to make the space feel like it's an actual functioning living lair that you know it's not going to be everything inside this closed door is still going to be there when I decide to enter it in. You have to make your dungeons much more dynamic than that in order for them to be interesting. Yeah, yeah. There's different ways to alter magic items. Or my favorite is give them a necklace of bone mending instead of a necklace of healing, and then question whether or not, well, how much bone damage might you have taken from that fall as opposed to, that sword or whatever. Yeah, it's always fun to throw those things at the party and let them try to work their way, wrap their head around it and then work their way through those unique things. Yeah, you know what you might take a look at laid out is on Dragon's Foot. I think in 2016, Frank Mentzner wrote a rework of Thieves Skills, and take a look at it. He does do a different system than the percentile roll system, and it's just a much more interesting way to play a thief. So if you just Google search um, Frank Mentzner, the Jack, that's the type of thief that it's called, is the Jack, and take a look at it. It's a really interesting article, and you'll see his ideas, his total rework of the thief class that he would have put into Beckme, at the time, but the idea, I guess, struck him just, thereafter, and then he republished it in 2016 on Dragon's Foot. So definitely take a look at that. I think you'll find it interesting. Bone mending, haha, that's funny. Yeah. Oh, it was hilarious. It really was. Well, you see, the necklace was on a bone golem, so it kind of made sense that the bone golem would use something that mends bones. He doesn't need to cure cuts or other kinds of flesh type of things. So that's what he had. So when the now when the fighter fell into the pit trap, they didn't think to use it. They used the regular healing spells instead. But I'm sure that they won't forget that now. So the next time somebody gets hit with a mace, they'll probably think, "Hey, that's probably bone damage. So let me use that necklace instead." Yes. So sounds good. Many types have power creep problems at higher levels. In 5e, it got hard and a 12th for RDM. While 12th and 5e is probably like that's like insane level. That's like 18 in first edition. Types was supposed to be TP. I'm not quite sure. I don't know what that means. We'll check that out. Yes. I'm not sure what that means, Cal. All right. Let's get back to another banner and let's see. Let's see. In 5e, I was up to level 13. Okay. Let's see. Questions. All right. Mirador, what's one skill, language, spell, or whatever that you're looking to learn for your character?
Oh. Well, I'm looking forward to when I get to where I can cast 4th level spells. There's a spell that allows you to imbue others with spell abilities. So I was thinking that I could like give Crandon like an aid spell and a cure light wound. So when we send him out to scout, he'll be able to give himself phantom hit points, and then if he gets hurt, he'll be able to heal himself.
Okay.
But I don't get that spell until 4th level.
Okay.
It allows you to imbue, I think, 3rd level spells and below to someone who normally doesn't have spellcasting ability.
Oh, that's cool. You know, that's something that I'm trying to remember when the last time I played the last time I played a cleric was in Ivan's game. I played a cleric, and that was the first time in for a long, long time. But he only went up to about 4th level in D&D, and then we switched him to Ivan's game that he's writing himself. But it was fine. It was the first time in a long time that I played a lawful good character, and so that was a really interesting thing for me to do because I'm so used to playing chaotic neutral that to play lawful good was a challenge, and it was an interesting thing. His deity was the deity of justice, so it was always kind of trying to balance everything, that way. What would be the most just thing to do. And then at one point, I did something that would have been out of character, and it really gnawed at me. I was like, "Oh crap! I should have had him do that. That's what the character would have done." Instead, I went and I did this other thing with the rest of the party, and I should have, stood the ground and said, "No, this is what we must do now." All right, so let's get to the last question. What type of monsters or creatures do you hope that your character will get to kill during this campaign? So what's the one? I'll start with Mirador this time. What's the one creature or monster that you're hoping to encounter during your adventures?
Well, I'm thinking that we're going to, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a chance to encounter our nemesis, the druid. And maybe be able to defeat him this time, hopefully.
If he doesn't somehow find a new way to escape,
like a villain does.
Yeah. And you, Leah?
The druid is the one I'm looking for, but
Yeah, everybody wants to kill that druid. Everyone wants to kill that druid. Do you care why he's evil, or it doesn't matter anymore?
I was offended by his attitude towards the demi-human races.
Yeah. So he's I mean it's
I was an abomination to him, so
he certainly didn't hold back on his his disdain,
his attitude.
And this really is the first time that I'm really upping the intensity of, evil in the world. And, I wanted it to be a very stark, stark contrast between, the player characters but I wanted it not to just be, oh, well, that's evil. I wanted it to be like, I'm invested in, I'm invested in stopping this, because not just because it's just simply evil, but because it's very counter to what, we as a group believe, or whatever. The one thing that one of my favorite moments in this campaign so far was when, I think it was Angus. When Angus was surprised. Oh, and here is Angus. Hey, Kelly, how's it going?
Hey, guys.
I was just bringing up. I just brought you up. All right, and I was talking about one of my favorite moments, and I was talking about how I've been like kind of upping the amount of what evil is in this campaign, and we were talking about the druid, and how evil I've kind of made him, and I'm trying to encourage the party to not just say, oh, that's evil, I want to destroy it, but
Right.
That's evil because it is so counter to what my character believes in and is doing and looking to do in the world. And so it's just like elevating that evil to a new height. And then I was like, but my favorite moment, was actually, I think it was you, when Angus was surprised that the half orc was a good guy. You know what I'm saying? It was like, it kind of showed that, this is the kind of thing that was so ingrained in, just D&D lore.
Right.
That, and just like, having the idea of a still a neutral, but neutral evil druids is something that just doesn't chime right until you eventually understand, like, or learn where you might not understand it, but you might learn, how their logic got so twisted that they could still be, well, they're still neutral, they're just neutral evil. It's like,
Right.
they've taken that, and I kind of gave that idea. It's like they're almost like environmental terrorists kind of thing. They care about the environment. They're just willing to do anything.
Probably in their mind, they can see themselves as doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But in the worldview of everybody else and society around them, it's definitely in their opinion or view is very evil. And they're neutral in their view because they think that what they're doing is the right thing, and in fact, they probably think of themselves as doing the good thing in their mind. But
Yeah.
in the reality of the world and the rest of the world and society and people in general, it's doing evil because of the way they're trying to pervert nature to their own cause. So yeah. I don't think many races or people or whatever they're doing, I don't think they necessarily feel that what they're doing is evil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they feel they're doing it and they feel they're just and they're right and whatever they feel. It's just when you take the consideration of the whole and and how it affects other people other than yourself is really what constitutes the good and the evil of the outcome of the world and how other people see it. So
Right.
you look at history, probably a lot of the conquerors of the world didn't feel they were evil at the time. They probably thought they were doing the right and just reason for whatever they had. But in history's view, they were definitely evil in the approach and the outcome that they tried to achieve and how they did it.
Right. I actually have a question up here. So do you guys use a mapper and a caller roles in your group? Mapper we used to have, but someone's character was called a Toon, and we lost our mapper.
We have lost our mapper. That's right.
Well, we do have a standard procedure we do in
But
every.
we do have a statistician now.
Yeah, we have a status.
We keep every
which is
stat,
really helpful.
absolutely. And every encounter is documented as far as who did what and all that. But also when we enter a situation, we always try to follow the right wall
Mhm.
until we can't, you know, so that way
Yeah.
we're always knowing how to get back out of where we went into, so to speak, without necessarily making a map or doing a map.
Yeah, well, you haven't used that. You haven't used that yet. You haven't had to like find your way back out of anything yet.
Right.
You know, you just kind of followed the body.
The only thing we had was that one in Quescaton, those teleportation rooms.
Yeah.
Oh
A
yeah.
little bit, but
Kind of screwed us up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even the map really didn't help us a whole lot there. We just kind of had to figure it out by just trial and error.
Right. Let's see. So
And we took off the doors and messed that up.
No,
Yeah.
that's true. That's funny.
Yeah, so a caller. I mean, yeah, your party does. You know, this group does kind of plan ahead of time, and you know, yeah, you guys do call out during combats. You know,
Well,
saying, hey,
yeah, who's going to approach the door? How we're going to approach the door? You know, we have a standard operational procedure that we do on 95% of the stuff, but occasionally we'll change that. You know, like normally I'm at the very back when someone opens the door, but this last couple of weeks, because of the nature of what we're encountering and traps and stuff, or possibility of, I've been right up front, so when the door is open, can immediately shoot something and back up. So yeah, it's been a little different.
Yeah, so far it's been like tactically, you guys have been very solid.
You know, it's funny. I've, you know, like you, we all have. This is such a great experienced group of gamers, and you know, and a lot of us have played back in the old day of D&D at conventions where it was a team effort. You know, in the AD&D Open, things like that. But really, you know, we run kind of in that sense that we have like a well-oiled machine, but yet each individual does have their own little sidebar, their own little ideas, and the role playing is still there where we banter off each other and what we do and have fun with it. It's not like a total military drill, but when we get into that situation of combat or a situation where we're really deeply exploring something, we're pretty well oiled as a group, I would say.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's been quite a while since you've made any, you know, real tactical mistakes.
Right.
You know, the last time and probably the first time was was part of the party going inside that room, and then the rest stayed out, and then the orcs slammed the door and barred it, so the rest of the party couldn't get in, and it really isolated 2 or 3 of you, you know, against 5 or whatever number of orcs that it was.
Yep, that was really the only time we really got separated or divided. You know, we've definitely kept together as a group.
Yeah. So you know, and then the only other time was really with the druid leaving him in the storage room and going off.
I was totally against that to begin with, but you know, that was one where I definitely was overridden, and it came back to bite us right in the butt.
Yeah, I was like, why would they think that the druid is just going to chill out there and just wait? You know, but it really, that actually led to at least 2 side adventures that would have never happened if it wasn't.
Well, we still haven't resolved it.
Yeah.
No, it's he's ongoing. He's an ongoing villain.
Yeah.
You know, he's that reoccurring possible villain that will be following us for, you know, the next 15 levels type of deal.
Yeah. So that was in session 4. Yep. And we're now in session 28, and you still haven't resolved it yet. So you know, that's another one of those, because one of the early questions I asked Kelly was that you know, what is something that's not immediately obvious advantage of having a long campaign? All right, and that's one of the other ones, is that you could have this fragment of a story, you know, in episode 4 that doesn't become fully realized until like episode like 7 or 8, and then you're still working towards cleaning it up in episode 28,
Right.
and so it kind of lends itself to making the world feel like it's still moving, whether
Oh, the
you're
world, yeah, the
engaged with it or
world.
not.
I was asked that the other day in a Facebook group, about people who run long-term campaigns like you and I have, and
Mhm.
and what really one of the things I say is when you're planning that campaign, you have your whole world storyline that's going on regardless of what the characters do,
Right.
and yet at the same time, the characters' actions can have a direct effect on that storyline,
Mhm.
positive or negative, and some of those results may not be known for weeks, months, or even years, depending on
Right.
the scope of the campaign, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I brought up, really months ago now, was that because someone asked, and I forget where it was, someone had asked, how would you handle um, helping a player cope with their character dying? And I said, well, this is what you do. And I says, every character that has left this, left this campaign, I still have the character sheet. I put it in a little book. I have it there. It's kind of like in the remembered cast members of the group. And I said, if your character dies, you might not, you're going to have that immediate impact of it, occurring at that time. But, player rolls up a new character, players playing that character for a while. And then maybe 6 months down the road, you'll be sitting in a tavern drinking, and the entertainer or whatever will stand up on the stage and start talking and reading a poem or singing a song about that character that died 6 months earlier, and the player is sitting there and saying, wow, like, they're telling stories of my character, and it will soften the blow, because now you're realizing that your characters are something that's important in the world, and what you're doing is a bigger thing than just that very immediate, thing. And the first time that really became a realization for you guys was defeating those bandits, in session, 5 or something like that. And, 2 or 3 weeks later, people were recognizing you for that action,
Right.
and might not have been the most complex combat. Although it was certainly interesting when you cast that darkness spell on the chainmail of the of the leader there, and he's running around like an idiot, total darkness, can't escape it. Never thought to take off his armor because he didn't know what you casted it on, what your group casted it on. But it's those kinds of things that make a long campaign very different from a short campaign. Is that you just don't get that in 6 sessions. I'm sorry. I mean, sorry, 5e, if that's your average. As
Well, you also don't get character progression. You can't plan on what you're planning for and levels ahead when, especially when the progression is so fast that you go from first to fifth in a couple of weeks. You don't, you don't really get the enjoyment of the achievement of getting there because it all happens so quick and easy.
Yeah, it's a yeah. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine enjoying playing really short campaigns and then just re-rolling and starting a new character up over again. It's like, to me, it's like playing the first 2 levels of a video game and then switching to a new game, never finishing anything.
Or replaying that same 2 levels of the same character over and over again, which unfortunately is how most of the pre-written DM stuff, GM stuff is. And you ever wondered why that of the modules created and the written material, about 80-90% of it's all for levels 1 through 3.
Yeah.
That's because most people, that's all they ever do is progress 1, 2, 3, and then they're back to 1, 2, 3, and back to 1, 2, 3. Rarely does anything go beyond that. That's why most of the material, has been created is for first through third level.
Yeah. It's, I always thought that was just a reason of trying to get more people to enter in. And
I think
so
that's
you'd have
one of the
more
reasons,
entry.
One of the reasons why I was excited when you posted the game, because I think that the highest I've ever played in a game is like level 9. So I'm looking forward to see if we can get past level 9. And I think you fully intend for us to do that. And so,
oh yeah, definitely intend for you to. I actually
we're in that what I call some of the longest gaps though, are kind of these 5, 6, and 7 levels, because that's when the monsters you fight aren't necessarily huge in XP. Yet the gap, the gap between 1, 2, 3, and 4 is pretty small in comparison. But 5 is a big jump, 6 is a big jump, 7's a big jump, and you're still not fighting, like dragons and stuff that give you massive XP and things like that typically. So 5, 6, and 7 are the real slow levels. Having done this numerous times.
Yeah.
And then you find out once you get in to 9, from there it really progresses pretty quick again for a few levels. So
yeah, because I think that once you start hitting that 9, you start hitting some of those very treasure heavy, more crypt keeping kind of thing, Tomb of Horrors.
You end up getting beholders and such, or dragons and such, that have massive treasure and massive value, and at that point you're a title level of lord or whatever it may be, and and the upkeep and the cost of maintaining that's a lot higher, so you got to go out and find bigger and better treasures just to maintain your keep and your status and all that.
So that's good. And that's something that I'm considering, because I'm going to probably follow a slightly different path than that. As you start becoming like lords and everything, like provided everybody gets there,
right. Provided I'll live.
Yeah. If you all get to that level and everything, it's not going to be, while we dungeon troll, dragon horde here and there, and doing all of these various things. I want to get more into that aspect of the game that's oftentimes overlooked, and that is, you found the copper mine.
Yeah, the political game of it in a way.
Yeah, and
where
just
you're more basically kingdom management and stuff like that, which is always fun. I love that.
Yeah, that kind of, so that's the other outlet, that I started thinking of, how are you guys, like I said, like once you hit level 5, then which some of you are already at, you could start training other first level characters, NPCs that will be, so they're paying you to train them, and not necessarily followers, but because you're too low for followers even at level 5, but you could start doing that training. And so you're paying someone's paying you, and then you could take that and we
could go hire our own little mercenary group to go out and do side jobs and bring us back traders, and have them be basically training them to be our underlings and followers for later type of deal.
Right, exactly. And you'll become an enterprise.
We have a guild hall now, right?
Yes, you have that.
We have a guild hall, so we can start our own adventure guild and basically be training other adventurers to duplicate and replicate what we're doing and take a piece of it, for training them and teaching them. The thing I realize is going for the bard, I will never attain level 9 as a fighter, so therefore I never really officially get that title of lord. So, but I guess it's not a big deal because you get all the other benefits of it.
Right. Yeah, what's the highest ranking bard called? Or they
Oh,
don't get title.
well, they get titles, but you're head of a bard college type of deal. You're not a
Ah,
you're not necessarily a landholder or lord. You're more of a you work your way up through the bard colleges, and the higher ranks are pretty high. And it's not like a druid or a monk where you have to go out and do a fight and challenge for those levels. I can't wait for a druid to reach that like level 11 where he has to go out and beat somebody up in order to go to 12.
yeah.
I want to cheer him on and watch him.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I'm wondering why they only do that with druids.
Well,
I
and
would
monks
think-
Monks do that too.
and monks as
monks
well.
do that too. They should do that with thieves.
Well, you'd think, yeah, because if you want to be the head of thieves guild, you got to beat the head of thieves guild.
Right. I would think
assassins do that
thieves
too.
would have to do the same thing. I would
think
certainly
assassins have to do
encourage
that
that. I
too.
would probably use that.
Well, I don't
you
know if
wanna-
they'd have to fight him in this, maybe even a thieves challenge, like a
Mhm.
like an obstacle course or maze with traps and whatnot and things of that nature. Kind of like a Hunger Game. Who's going to survive and get to the end type of deal. But no, I do look forward to that because that's one of the things about playing a monk. I mean, depending on what if you're lawful good or lawful neutral or lawful evil. If you're lawful evil monk, they're fights to the death type of deal.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I almost played a monk. That was my first consideration.
Well, we had a monk very early on.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't do it, I think.
Yeah. And he just
But I tell you what, that wouldn't have been as fun as one-shotting people left and right. That's a lot of fun too.
yeah. Laid out. I'm actually working on something for a thieves guild right now. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm about 15 pages in, and
You tell me a bit about that. That's pretty exciting.
I'll talk offline with you about that. Yeah, that's my next published project that I'm working on.
Yeah, I need to get that published. Remember an old setting called Thieves World?
Yes.
Yeah, all the books. I read all the books. Of course, the published setting for, I think it's for Chaosium, and they had a rules addendum for D&D as well for playing it. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I am working on it. I'm actually talking with one other person that's a game developer, as well, but he does a lot of layouts and stuff like that. So I'm going to certainly ask him, to take a look at it, and maybe, he'll want to do the layout on it. But yeah, I'm looking to, really put a lot into it. I'm thinking it'll probably be closer to, between 40, 50 pages when it's all said and done. So, with just a few adventure hooks in, but mostly just concept about, what a thieves guild and other things revolving around thieves, and tweaking some of the thieves skills and such as well. Drawing from like Frank Metzner's, the Jack, and looking at both first edition and second edition, elements of non-weapon proficiencies that a thieves guild would really look to incorporate within itself, and then just some things that are just unique, I think unique in the way that they would run it, because I've never really seen anything published talking about the inner workings of a thieves guild.
Gary published a book for, it may have been the work he did with Troll Lords, called Thieves Cant.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that book? It was a book about the Thieves Guild, the operational side of the Thieves Guild, how they work. I have a copy of it.
Did he do that? Dragon Magazine.
No, this was a whole book. It was probably it was hardbound, probably 128, 156 page book
Mhm.
that had a green cover. I
Yeah.
could probably go pull off the shelf pretty easy. If not, I
Yeah.
know what box it's in. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff about Thieves World, and talked about the language and and the whole setup and structure from the Thieves Guild Master, Grand Master, all the way down through operation of a footpad, everything kind of in between type of deal.
Yeah, there was an article, maybe it was Troll Lord. There was something I did come across when I was doing some research that was kind of laying out the inner workings of these. It could have actually been that.
Well, he did a whole series of world building stuff.
Hmm.
He did, on how to build a world, it was, I think there were like 4 books in that series. It was part of that series.
Okay.
I'll have
Yeah,
to
I'll
look.
definitely have to look into
I'll
that.
send you some information. I'll look for it later and send you details. Another good inspirational side of Thieves Go working stuff is obviously Lankmar. Fritz
Yes.
Lieber's Thoth and the Grey Mauser.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has an awful lot of good stuff in it. And
Yeah.
of course, I've incorporated Lankmar into most of my campaign setting. As far as a city that's thieves, and much like in Conan, you got the city of Shadowzar, and
Right.
in the whole area where nothing but thieves in the whole city, and they control the religion and the profits and the monies and all that. So yeah, it's a lot of good literature references to it, but no one has done anything really good, especially for D&D with the Thieves Guild setting. Probably since that series of Gary's, probably in I'd say probably mid '90s. So it's been that long.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the city of Luskan in the Forgotten Realms is a city of thieves as well.
Is it really? Didn't know that.
I believe so. I mean, Waterdeep obviously has a thieves guild as well, but I
Baldur's
think
Gate does.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think Luskan was well known for thieves. I never played in the Forgotten Realms. I just know of Luskan when I was messing around a bit with Sword Coast Legends, the video game,
Right.
and a lot of that took place in Luskan, and there was talk about the Thieves Guild there and how powerful it was.
Yeah, I don't. I obviously did a lot of reading of Forgotten Realms stuff, but I don't remember anything specific. My favorite setting in Forgotten Realms of Mahalaran, which was the Egyptian type of setting.
Hmm. Yeah, like I said, I never played in the Forgotten Realms on tabletop. Just Neverwinter Nights is obviously set in the Forgotten Realms, and
Right.
played that. All the video games.
All the video games, yeah. My
Yeah.
problem when we were play testing Forgotten Realms at TSR and when we were doing stuff with it, I quickly realized that Forgotten Realms is not about the player characters.
Hmm.
It's about the powerful NPCs in the game.
Yeah.
The player characters are never going to be, they're never going to be Kelvin Blackstaff. They're never going to be Elemenster. They're never going to be, the sisters and all this stuff that's all built into the legend and lore of the whole world. And you always play second or third or even, fifth chair to these NPCs. And, it's like, they're like the gods on wheels, and you're just simply there to pick up their breadcrumbs, so to speak. So I always felt that as far as a real viable campaign, why I never run it was I just felt like if you ran it true to what Forgotten Realms was, it really lets players have no freedom of being the heroes of the world, so to speak. So I
Right.
always homebrewed my own stuff that
Hmm.
more character centric rather than second fiddle.
Right. Okay. Let's see. We've been going almost 2 hours now, so so I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes. Plus, I have to make some phone calls.
Sorry I didn't get on till late, guys, but
No, that's fine.
I did want to join y'all, and I know you. We always have a good wrap up crew and a lot of good questions. I watched last week's. Of course, I love watching everybody's responses. So.
Yeah, no, we'll certainly continue doing these, and I'll continue looking to do them at the same time if that works out for everybody. On Friday nights, since my other thing that I was doing on Fridays kind of fell apart or whatever. We're just taking a hiatus from it, so I think it's a much easier way to do it this way. So once again, everybody, thanks for joining. And for those of you in the chat, some really cool stuff in the chat. So, and I have some, pretty cool things to do some follow up on and take a look at. So we are going to come off of live, and thank you all for joining. And we are ending the broadcast.